Reveille.
Look at us now.
Ooh, Jesus.
It's 11 a.m. Kombat.
Oh, there
Whoa. You fit in seamlessly in this weird MK environment.
Do you want a margarita?
We're gonna do it.
That's it.
On your marks, get set, and go now.
Oh, welcome, donks, on this, you're watching this on this 5th day of June, 2026. It's another episode of Morning Kombat. Hello, everyone. I am merely one half of your hosting duo. My name is Luke Thomas. I join you from the capital of Estados Unidos right here in Washington, D.C., joined by a gentleman who is making his show debut, although he is an OG like me. He's been in a lot of places. Did you work for ESPN at one point, Ben?
ESPN is like the only one I haven't worked for.
Okay. Ben's worked at every place other than ESPN. Right now is the Co-Main Event podcast, as well as Yahoo's Uncrowned. Ben Fowlkes, everyone. Ben, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. You know who's really going to be thrilled that I'm on here is my hockey buddy, Sam. Sam Keen, the Keener. He's out there. I know you're watching, Sam. He's been hitting me up about this, about being on Morning Kombat. So this one's all for you, Sam. It is 8:30 in the morning. Just dropped my kids off at school, and I got back here to do this. You know, partially for you, Luke, partially for the rest of your audience, mostly for the Keener, for the big Keen dog.
Dude, why are you playing hockey at our age? This seems totally inadvisable.
You know, I had a physician who said the same thing when I went in there for a physical, and I was just like, get me a new physician, give me a new personal doctor. You got to do something, man. I need to have something. I like to go out there and lift weights. I go on runs. I do regular exercise shit. I need there to be something that I can look forward to where I'm going to go out there tonight and win or lose, but I'm going to get that competition feeling, that sort of just like fun sports feeling. It's hard. That was the thing, man. When I had to transition out of doing jujitsu just because my neck got so bad after, a couple decades of that, and understandably so. And for a while I was like, maybe I could get more into boxing. I still go to a boxing class, I do it kind of for a cardio workout. But you know how it is when you're doing boxing stuff, you're doing a lot of drills. You're doing it you're not getting that feeling that you'd get out of jujitsu where I'm going to roll, bunch of times tonight. Some I'll win, some I'll lose, but I get that competitive feeling. I got to have that. And hockey gives me that, but it also gives it to me in an extremely low stakes way to where even when you go, you lose, you're mad about it. You walk back in the locker room, you throw your gloves down and you say, fuck those guys. And then you're fine. Then you've let it go and you're ready to move on with the rest. That's the exact right type of competitiveness I need in my life right now at the age of 46. And I haven't gotten hurt, so it seems to be okay.
All right. Well, as long as you're not getting hurt, I'm just worried about your Fedor versus Chael era. You know what I mean? I don't want the bottom to drop out is all I guess I'm saying.
I'll tell you what, you look around the rest of the league I'm in, there's not exactly a bunch of hungry young killers. We're not being fed to the lions out there. There's a lot of other people. Every once in a while, somebody takes a hard hit, either on purpose or on accident. And you can hear people on the benches shouting, hey, people got work in the morning. Tone it down. And then we go back to our normal business.
Excellent. Well, let's set the tone for the show here today. We are pre-recording this. This is the fault of the third member of the show. Let's bring him in now. It's the resident Knicks fan. And listen, if he's sober, that's a bonus, but I'm not expecting it. It's Long Island Luke. Well, there he is with the what do I say? Is that the
Basketball East? Basketball East, baby. The best team in the basketball. Everyone knows that. Luke, you always say, is he sober? Is he high? I'm high on the Knicks today, baby. Let's go. Also, shout out to Keener, Ben Fowlkes' friend. Is he an Islander fan, Ben? Big Islander fan here. So hopefully he's an Islander fan. Probably not, but,
he
shout
might
out to
be
Keener.
A little too far west to know the Islanders even exist. So sorry about that.
Exist. Wow.
I'm glad for you guys though. Excited about is it the Knickerbockers? Is that who we're?
It is the Bockers.
I understand that there is some basketball happening. For those who celebrate, good for you.
Thank you.
I'll catch the scores after each Stanley Cup Finals game. Let's say that.
We got to move on, but I just have to ask because I so the way my traditional sports fandom works is that I basically only watch my teams until the playoffs, and if my team is not in the playoffs, I often don't watch. There are exceptions, for example, the NBA playoffs I'm watching, but I am shameful to admit I don't even know who's in the Stanley Cup Finals. Who is in the Stanley Cup Finals?
It's Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights. And
Ooh.
my own
Hurricanes will beat up on my Caps a lot. I'm sad to admit.
Hurricanes are pretty tough. I saw your Caps this season. I was in Boston and I got to see the Bruins and the Capitals, and I got to just watch Alexander Ovechkin's skating style at this point in his career. He's not doing a single thing more than he needs to do out there, and I respect the absolute hell out of it. But my rooting interest is I root for the Kraken during the regular season. They have not been in the playoffs a ton since their inception. But after that, I root against the Vegas Golden Knights. So
yeah, fuck them.
I have a lot on the line in this one, mainly just because I think the Knights, they're bad people. They hate this country. They hate good, upstanding citizens, and I hope that they're destroyed.
Yes, when the Caps won the Stanley Cup, they had to do it against the Vegas Golden Knights. And also because Vegas is one of the worst places on earth, I'm absolutely going to root for their demise. All right, let me set the tone here. So we are going to talk about this UFC event this weekend. It's not the best one, but we are going to break it down for you. Ben wrote an interesting article about the UFC White House event. We'll talk about that. Scott Coker is back, kind of sort of laying out more details about who's in the organization that he is now founding or starting to get back into MMA, and then also kind of what their vision is for the future. We'll talk about all of that plus more. So let me also say we do have merch. morningkombat.shop is going to be the place to go. These are the June exclusives. We have the Genesis design, as you can see here. We then have the biker design, if my memory serves. It's a little bit weird how we're doing it. And then last but not least, we have the, let's see. Why is it doing that? The Long Island Luke, the combat design, or the crown design, excuse me.
With like the glitch each time? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's good with
That's
that.
weird. Now, let's also remind everyone we have the designs for the basketball. We have the basketball West there on the left, and then the basketball East on the right, if you're into the basketball. All right? All right. morningkombat@gmail.com to reach the show. morningkombat.shop, as you can see there below on the screen. All right, very good. With that in mind, let's get this show on the road. Topic number one, we will go and start with the Apex event. It is the, I won't say premier event per se, but it is the biggest one or the most relevant one to our interests this weekend. And we'll start with the main event in particular, namely a welterweight main event between former champion Belal Muhammad and then kind of surging upstart at this point, Gabriel Bonfim. Now, Bonfim is riding a 4-fight win streak, which is, and I'm going to say in terms of the names, the best of his career. Belal turns 38, I believe, in July and hasn't won since he actually claimed the UFC title in July of 2024 when he beat Leon Edwards. Here you can see his last 5. So it's not exactly gone super awesome, although he lost to very good fighters. Ben, I'll start with you. Is this about the UFC basically finally testing Bonfim to like, okay, he's 28. Let's see what we've got with this guy. And that he's like, they want to see, is this guy ready to make a move at welterweight? And they're kind of cashing out Belal.
I think it's sort of a test for both of them in that way. They see one guy on the way up, one guy on the way down, and they're trying to find out, have the lines intersected? Have they crossed? And I'm concerned for Belal, honestly. Not necessarily concerned that something terrible is going to happen to him in this fight, but I'm concerned for where he's at this point in his career. Because as you said, you start to get into your late 30s, you got a couple losses in a row. It's crazy how quick it all turned for him, right? Because there was that moment after the win over Leon Edwards where we were going, can you believe it? He did it. He achieved his dream. He became the UFC champion. Nobody ever seemed to want to give Belal that opportunity, no matter how many fights in a row he had won. He finally got there through just blood, sweat, and toil and cashed in that opportunity. And we were all, it was hard not to be happy for the guy, to see like what he had achieved. And then to fast forward now, and it's just like, man, that sandcastle quickly got melted. You lose one to Jack Della Maddalena, who wasn't even on people's radar at the time, as that seems like the next guy you're probably going to have to face for the welterweight title. You lose that one, you turn around, you lose to Ian Gary. Again, you're right. Those are 2 fights that kind of anybody in the division could lose. but we've seen it where sometimes you're at that precipice in your career, you lose a couple, it gets in a fighter's head where he starts to go out there thinking, I can't lose another one. It's like going up to bat in a baseball game thinking, don't strike out. And that's not where you want to be. You don't want to be out there just trying to have it not go terribly for you. It seems like that has to have hurt his confidence a little bit. He's a smart guy. He's been in this sport long enough. When they match you up against this guy who is, as you said, surging through the division, a young guy, and they put you on the apex, they put you in a main event at the apex. You know what they're saying about you. You know what they're saying about where they think you are. And that's a lot of pressure. He's got to come out there and win this one and be like, listen, I am not the guy that you use as a stepping stone for somebody else. I am not an apex fighter, not even in an apex main event. Get me out of here. Treat me with some more respect. And if you don't do that, if it turns out Gabriel Bonfim is the guy with a ton of confidence coming in here and he's able to help make his resume off of yours, that gets kind of dismal, man. That gets into a tough spot for Belal. And this is matchup wise, like you could see how this one might go badly for him if he doesn't get to do his stuff.
I think it's a pretty good summation. I'll add that the DraftKings odds as it stands today, Belal Muhammad at -122, Gabriel Bonfim at +102. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some movement even between now and when the fights actually happen. I guess we'll see. But it's an interesting one, right? Because I really share your assessment of Belal, both in terms of psychologically what impact all of this might be having, the being at the apex, being in this kind of fight against a 28-year-old upstart, as you indicated, although the losses aren't bad as such, but they're not great either. And I don't know if he's done, but I will say, and I'm sure you've seen this, where like guys will just be on top and then they'll lose, and then that losing streak will last much longer than you ever imagined. Like, so for example, here's another one. Israel Adesanya knocks out Poatan in their fourth fight, but their rematch in MMA, gets back his title. He's on top of the world. He has not won since. He has not won a single fight since then. And I just don't know who would have predicted at that time, if you're able to get a win like that, oh, you'll just never win again. Like, that seems very hard to process, but the game can go just like that. As I mentioned, 37, he'll be 38 this summer. Clearly the UFC has some concerns about where he is. The thing that's interesting for me is on the Bonfim side, this fight is actually great matchmaking, because I will tell you, Ben, clearly he's doing something right. And I don't really hold his losses against him too much. I don't think he's a prodigy per se, but he's definitely not like damaged goods. At 28 and, at +102 here in the odds, there's good reason to think he could win this weekend. Nevertheless, I'm not sold on him yet. Like, I'd be much more sold on him if he were able to get a solid. He beat Wonder Boy, and that's great. He's beaten Chaos Williams, and that's great. He's beaten some Angelosa. He's beaten some good names. But this would be the best one, even for whatever we think that Belal actually is. So there's like, this main event, it doesn't have sizzle as such. It's not the biggest one they've ever made. I'm not telling people they have to like it. But the teetering that both guys are on here in one direction or the other is actually pretty significant. And for that reason, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Bonfim, I mean, when you've only lost one fight out there, then it's hard for us to say, that we think that we've seen your ceiling. And that is the exciting thing. We get wrapped up in these young up-and-coming contenders because we're like, he could be anything still. We might be seeing him be better every single time he shows up out there. And when you get to be Belal's age, and we've seen you as many times, we feel like we know what to expect pretty much. We feel like you're not going to come out there and suddenly be a way different fighter, at least not in the good way. So that is like, when you think about it, like stylistically, what you're likely to see out of a fight like this, Belal is one of those guys where when he gets to fight his kind of fight, he's really tough. It's really tough to beat that guy. And if you can make him do anything else, then it becomes a much more winnable fight. And that's kind of the question for him at this point. Can he still go out there the way he did against Leon Edwards when he won the title and be like, no, this is the kind of fight we're having, whether you like it or not? That's the part that I think is a big question mark for him. I also think that at this point, inside the MMA bubble, inside for the hardcore fans, the Apex has taken on such a weird just identity inside our minds. It's like when you put an ex-champion on an Apex card like this, you put this fight card together, we know the difference. We know that there are tiers of UFC programming. We know you put together this fight night and you didn't think you could take it to San Antonio or Nashville or Chicago or Toronto or whatever. You didn't think you could reliably go sell some tickets with it, or wasn't at a time when somebody was willing to pay you to come to their city and sell tickets with it. And so instead you go, just stick it on the Apex. You're telling us that you don't really think this one matters as much. And fans have gotten that message, and fighters have gotten that message. They know to look at it, they go, okay, so I'm at a UFC fight night at the Apex. That's what you think of me? All right. And it very much, you tune into it. It almost feels like practice. It feels like it doesn't matter quite as much. The UFC has communicated this to us, whether it intended to or not, and people have gotten the message on it. And so I'm sure that there's an element for Belal that's going, not only are they trying to see if this young guy can make his name off of me, they also don't even think that I'm worth selling a bunch of tickets over. They don't even think I'm at that point. And so I would think he'd come in here with a whole lot to prove. But you're right. Like, the other side of being the ex-champion who then struggles to get a win after that is, I think often about that scene of The Departed where Jack Nicholson is looking at Leonardo DiCaprio and saying, like, I look at you and I think, what can I use you for? That's what the UFC does with these guys, where they didn't really love Belal as a champion the first time around. They were not eager to see him in too many opportunities where he could be a champion again, I think, after he lost. And so they go and they look at him, they go, he's probably close to the end, just age-wise. What is he good for? What can we use him for at this point? And they said, I know, fight at the Apex against this up-and-comer who might still become something. And that's what they think of you. You know, this is the opportunity to go out there. We've seen guys come back from that. They've tried to put Max Holloway in that situation a few times in his career, and they tried to put Dustin Poirier in that situation. It is possible to go out there and show everybody, no, I'm not that guy yet. You can't do that unless you want to lose your contenders. So he has that opportunity here, but also this is one that if you're Belal and you want to stay relevant, you want to stay a guy in the welterweight division, you absolutely have to win this one, and you probably got to look pretty good doing it.
Let's take a look at what Belal thinks is going to be the difference in the fight itself. We got a clip and then we'll react to it.
And stylistically, how do you think it plays out with Bonfim? Right, he's a threat in different areas of the game, but how do you think it'll play out?
I think I've fought many guys like him, right? He's got good jiu-jitsu, he got explosiveness. He has like a readable style. With me, I'm an awkward style, I'm a different type of style, and I'm a different type of fighter that he's ever fought. I think that Saturday he gets broken. For myself, I feel the best I've ever felt. I feel the strongest I've ever felt. Shout out to Kyle Bracey. We've been working on new strength programming, but age doesn't matter. Like, I started this sport late. I've been in this sport late. I don't have the damage that a lot of these guys have. So when people talk about age, that doesn't mean anything to me. For me, Saturday night, I'm going to show him the experience, the guys, the road that I've been through, the long road, the toughest roads, right? And I'm still taking on the toughest guys. So all that adds up, and then Saturday night, I get my hand raised.
The experience has to be worth something, but if you're on the physical decline and the other guy is surging and getting better, like observably better because of the age bracket that he's in, fight over fight, it's not exactly clear that the experience can matter in that particular circumstance. I guess the question is, where are we between these two?
Well, also, I mean, I understand what Belal's saying. Some of that, he is saying the things that you say in a time like this, where you're fighting the young guy. Hey, I've got experience, you know, because you got to say something both to yourself and to other people. But when he says, I haven't, you know, I got in late, I haven't taken all the damage and everything. He's been in the sport he's been a pro for like 14 years. He's got 30 pro fights. You see, I mean, not all these fights add odometers to the miles in the same extent, but 30 pro fights is the point where a lot of people do start to see a declining return. I think that Belal has been smarter than a lot of guys in training from everything I've heard. I remember talking to him for a story I did a few years back about fighters who were making the switch from the old school era of MMA. You remember when people were just like sparring several times a week. That's how you get tough. Iron sharpens iron, and we're going to get in there. And those guys, their careers kind of took a nosedive at a certain point because they were doing so much damage to themselves in the gym. And Belal was not one of those guys. He was sort of one of the leaders of a new way of thinking about it, that once you get to a point in your career, you do not need to be sparring all the time. You know how to fight. You need to be working on specifics. You need to be drilling more. You need to be taking less damage in the gym. And so I think that he was smarter about it than a lot of people. But at the same time, 30 pro fights is a lot to put your body through, especially because Belal didn't have a ton of the kind of fights where you go out there and knock somebody out in 30 seconds and then you go to the club and enjoy your after party. He goes out there and grinds, and that can take a little bit more of a toll on you. I did think it was interesting, though, the thing he said about he's going to get broken, because that tells you a little bit about what kind of a fight Belal is hoping for and what kind of a fight he is seeing. Now, maybe this is just the grappler in me, and I'm sure you'll relate to it as a grappler guy yourself. I love it when people start talking about that. I love that aspect of the grappling arts that is not really present as much in other martial arts forms. Is always really fascinating to me. The idea that we both want this thing so much. We are both dedicated, proven professionals at this point. But once you get in there with me, I will convince you that you don't want it enough. I will put you through something that makes you just want to go home, even if you go home with a loss on your record. Psychological, and we've seen it happen. To get to see that happen in a live sports broadcast is, to me, still one of the most fascinating things in pro sports, because you can see it. You can see it on a guy's face at times, and you're just like, man, you spent weeks thinking about this moment. You had all this time to prepare. You were sure this wasn't going to happen, and you can see it in a guy's eyes and in his sort of physical demeanor when he goes from believing like, I'm a fighter of destiny, my heart's on fire, to shit, this sucks, I want to go home. And that, to me, like, that's got to be where Belal is putting a lot of his hopes. It's just like, this kid doesn't know enough yet to know what he doesn't know, and I'm going to show him.
We shall see. I looked this up before the show to get a sense of like where Bonfim is with all this, because you also recall that Belal, after the JDM fight, kind of confessed that he didn't shoot quite as much as he wanted to. Again, I think part of that is also, I've gone back and looked at that fight in close detail. JDM was giving him nothing to work with at the same time, or at least for the most part. And there was just a lot of tricks that JDM had that I think since subsequent to that, guys have picked up on, like these half judo throws just to create rotation. But, he could have wrestled more. I don't know if that would have made the difference. But in any case, it's at least in the back of his mind. So then I went and looked at like all of the fights that Bonfim has had in UFC. And he's been taken down like a couple of times. It's definitely happened, but not really. And the most he ever took someone down, or I should say the most he ever got taken down, apologies, was the Ange Losa fight. He got him down 4 times, but he was barely able to hold him down. The one caveat to that, though, is Bonfim and his brother tend to love to jump on submissions. They love to for guillotines, for example. And he jumped for a few of these and got taken down pretty well. And dude, Losa's ground control, wherever Belal is in his journey as a fighter, I'm going to say that his ground control today is better than anything Ange Losa has ever had. And, if you're readily jumping for guillotine, like, to me, this is not just a test of like it. Sometimes when you're like a fighter levels up, Ben, you're like, oh, it's a test of maybe their overall skill or their well-roundedness or, a particular dimension of the game itself. And that's certainly the case here. But honestly, on some level, this might also end up just being a bit of an IQ test. Like, are you going to jump for guillotines on a guy who is probably the best fighter you've ever faced, certainly in one dimension? Are you going to give that up in ways you've given it up in other fights? I'm curious to see what kind of an approach Bonfim takes strategically and then tactically, what he does there in the end, given some of the things we've seen on the stat sheet.
Yeah, I think that sometimes that is one of those things that is just a part of the experience that comes in, is that when you're fighting lower level guys on your way up, that stuff can work on them. They shoot for a takedown, you grab a guillotine, go to your guard. Everybody will say to themselves, I got great guillotines. I'm getting people in practice with this guillotine all the time. Yeah, but when you get to the higher levels, that's not going to work. Those guys, it's really hard to catch those guys in something if you haven't hurt them on the feet somehow to where they're slow to react. And I think that sometimes you see fighters who are able to make that switch where they go, I'm going against a higher level opponent. There's a lot less room for error. A lot of the stuff that worked on lower level guys is just not going to work on this guy. And that is part of the adjustment that a lot of guys have to go through. Some of them can make that adjustment, others can't. I think also one thing that we've seen from people is the guillotine is a great example of it. If you are going for those guillotines off the takedown instead of thinking about takedown defense first, it's often because a part of your brain is saying, let's win right now, rather than let's win a little bit at a time. And guys who are grappling first, like Belal when he's at his best, they're always thinking about winning a little bit at a time. They're winning these little individual battles and hoping that it'll mount up. And that's how Khabib used to get people in trouble, honestly. I mean, not that I'm going to sit here and honestly make a comparison between Belal and Khabib, but he would get you in that kind of a rinse cycle up against the fence. You'd start to get tired. You'd start to get desperate. And pretty soon you're going, let me just go for something. Either something to escape, something to try to turn the fight suddenly in my favor. And then that's when you end up giving up something big to him. And he's just like putting that kind of pressure on you that he knows eventually you're going to get, your brain's going to get a little lazy and you're going to try to go for something easier as a way out. And I think that you see lots of guys though who are doing that at an earlier point in their career simply because it was working against fighters who are not as good. I think a lot of guys are able to make that adjustment. If Bonfim can't, he's in trouble.
Take a look at this other clip we have from Belal where he's going to tell us what this fight is going to be like.
Feels like the Epstein files without the sex, right? I'm getting their powers through sparring and training, so it feels good.
That's really what MK is. It's the Epstein files without the sex. We don't do any crimes here, but we're just gross.
Bro, come on now. For the sake of your own analogy, you are a monstrous villain? I don't understand what the thinking was on that one. I'm gonna go out there in my sunglasses.
Dicks.
I'll go out there in my sunglasses and compare myself to Jeffrey Epstein. Man, no.
Maybe he meant New York socialite. Maybe he meant party thrower of Manhattan. I don't know.
Knows a lot of people, apparently.
Yeah,
that's
right.
what he meant.
Do you, as we wrap this topic up, care to hazard a guess on how this goes?
This is going to expose, I guess, the core cynicism lurking deep within my heart. I don't feel great about where Belal is at right now. I think that age and time spent in the sport, all the rounds, all the years, that's a real thing. I think the confidence might be an issue. I think that he might be able to get his wrestle on early on in the fight. The problem is, can Belal go out there and finish this fight, or does he have to be there all night in order to win it? Because I think Bonfim can finish it. I think he can put that pressure on, that pace on you. He can hurt you. And while I think on paper Belal should win a fight like this, where he's at in his career right now makes me worry for him. So I would lean toward Bonfim.
Long Island Luke, where are you?
I'm going to follow the trend of the last few Apex events. All right, hear me out. We had Arnold Allen defeat Melky Costa. We had Aljamain defeat Yusuf Zalal. We had Moicano defeat Chris Duncan. I'm taking the old guy. Give me Belal Muhammad by decision.
I want to pick Bonfim, but I'm just like, I'm not really sure if you're that guy. I guess I'll go Belal, but I don't. It's like my hesitation matches the odds. I don't really have a strong beat on this one at all.
Yeah.
All right, let's turn our attention to topic number 2, which is basically the rest of this fight night card. There's actually, let's listen to some of these fights. Your co-main event, Brendan Allen versus Edmund Shabazian. We'll get to that. Fariz Ziam taking on Tom Nolan. I have a lot to say about that. Bryce Mitchell, by the way, versus Santiago Luna. Matt Schnell taking on Alessandro Costa. And then Iwo Baranevsky, I can never remember how to pronounce his name, taking on Junior Tafa, which, was probably going to go no longer than a minute. So I'll let you grade, Ben, by any rubric you like. A, B, C, D, 1 out of 10, 5 pile of trash necks, whatever you want to call it. Give me a grade for this card.
Oh, I have to grade on a curve because it is a UFC Fight Night Apex card. So we know what to expect of those. For that, it's one of the better ones. For a UFC Apex card, I'd say it's a B, a solid B.
I think it's about right.
Name recognition wise, you have some stuff. You're going to put Bryce Mitchell on a fight card like this, and you're going to say, hey, he's not what he once was. He will show up and say some absolutely insane things. You can count on that every single time. You got some guys out here that we look at and go, oh yeah, I know this guy. I've heard of this guy. I remember this guy. I have thoughts one way or another about this guy. That right there puts it ahead of a whole lot of these Apex cards. And so, you throw a Taffa brother on there. You throw Brendan. If I were Brendan Allen, honestly, I might be looking at this and being like, so this is my reward for going in there and beating up Rainier de Ritter, huh? He was the guy you're really hot on. I beat Marvin Vettori and then turn around and beat Rainier de Ritter. I was going, all right, that's it. Now everybody got to put some respect on Brendan Allen's name. And they go, how about you versus the Shabazian kid in the co-main of an Apex event the week before the White House event? So the oxygen in the room is completely sucked out by the time you guys get in there. Like everybody else is already thinking about something else. Debatable whether Dana White even shows up for these kind of a fight cards. He might be busy thinking about the claw or whatever. You got to be saying, man, I really thought that victory was going to lead to a little something more.
Well, it didn't. So let's set this up. Brendan Allen, as you mentioned, taking on Edmund Shabazian in the co-main event. I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that as a fight, like if I'm trying to think about what the fight looks like, I'm like, oh, this will be Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou 1. No, I don't think that at all. But Brendan Allen is ranked 4th. Edmund Shabazian isn't ranked at all. Ben, why the fuck is this fight happening?
The career of Edmund Shabazian should be studied, or like the matchmaking for him should be studied, because the UFC it seems like they've changed their minds several times on what they think he's capable of, what they really want to do with this guy. Like he was the young hotness, and then you sort of got him overbooked too soon. He took a bunch of losses, and then we were like, oh, no, but he's young, plenty of time to come back from it. He's coming back. Don't worry about this guy. And you look at the list of people who he has, the Gerald Mearshart one, his most recent loss, that one doesn't age quite so well. But before that, he lost, the first one to Derek Brunson, singing or dancing Jack Hermanson, then Nassourdine Imavov. Imagine you're on a 2-fight losing streak and they say to you, how about Nassourdine Imavov next? Like, knowing what we know now about Imavov, you'd be like, God, no, say you're sick. Say you just won a cruise and you're going on a 6-month cruise through the Arctic. Say anything to get out of that fight, man. You don't need that when you're already on a 2-fight losing streak. And then, he wins one, he comes back and loses to Fluffy Hernandez. And you're like, man, they went back and forth with him where it seemed like, all right, we're really excited about this guy. He's going straight to the top. Actually, maybe he's not. Feed him to the wolves. And they keep sort of changing their minds. This one, Brendan Allen coming off a big win, you're throwing him in there here. It kind of seems like you're saying, listen, if there are any signs of life in Edmund Shabazian, he better show it now. He better show it now in a tough matchup for him. If I were his management, this would not be the one I would advise. I'll say that.
So they have the same manager. It's dominance. They have Ali's repping both these dudes.
See, when are these fighters going to get smart?
Never, bro. They've been told a million times how to protect themselves. Some of these guys just don't like defense. I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean?
It's incredible to me how many of these guys, like, I guess it shouldn't. We live in the age of the obvious con man. And so it shouldn't be a surprise that so many people continue to be falling into the most obvious traps. But you look at this guy where Ali Abdelaziz is obviously in no usual sense of the word a manager. He is a broker. He is a broker for the UFC, not for you as an individual fighter. He is a conduit. He brings these guys through to the UFC and does a volume business, and his main goal is to stay in good graces of the UFC, and he will always try to double deal as much as he can. We learned that from his role in the PFL back when it was World Series of Fighting. He loves to have both sides of a fight. Throw you guys in there. How do you tell yourself he's looking out for your best interests there? I mean, I know that it's not like there are a ton of great managers in the sport to choose from, but there's some. You don't all have to have the same guy. It's if they find out in the NFLPA what you guys are doing, they're going to be so disappointed in you. They're not even mad MMA fighters. They will be disappointed in you because you have a choice to do better and you just refuse to take it. Oh shit!
Yeah, the air horn. We have a hip hop horn here. This is a high production effort. Don't think otherwise. Well, now, in terms of the fight itself, the odds are kind of interesting, right? Because you've got Brendan Allen, our friends at DraftKings, minus 205, and then Edmund plus 170. I certainly think Allen deserves to be the favorite. That doesn't seem like any kind of stretch. And it's interesting. Brendan Allen 30, Edmund Shabazian at 28. But I'll tell you what, like Brendan's best wins are, to me, just much better. I mean, if you look at Edmund Shabazian's wins, as you kind of indicated, the win streak he's on is nice, but it's Dylan Budka. I don't remember that fight. The Andre Petroski fight, which is fine, and he went the distance, and that's some good experience. But that's not that's not like an amazing win or anything. And then Andre Muniz, who is the Edmund Shabazian of Brazil, just in terms of his ability to collapse seemingly out of nowhere at times in fights. It's like this is not a proven win streak by any stretch of the imagination, especially compared to Allen. I'm not saying that the odds are close as such, Ben, but like they're a little closer than I thought they would be for 4 versus unranked, much more proven guy versus much less proven guy. Why are they so close?
Maybe just because people still think Edmund Shabazian has athletically, physically some tools, and we're just waiting. Any night it feels like maybe he could show up and he could show you the full complement of what he could do, and that was what got people excited about him, right? When he was young, I mean, he's now late 20s, but now he's basically fighting peers in terms of age, and I think that people get excited about that kind of physical potential. They can talk themselves into thinking maybe this is the night it shows up. It also seems like maybe they go, Brendan Allen is a dog who not a whole lot of people recognize or remember. Maybe not as many people as they should recognize or remember. And so sometimes you have to remember these odds are not just a reflection of who we think is going to win, but a reflection of what does it take to get somebody to bet on these guys? What does it take to get some of this money flowing? And I think that it might be a reflection of that.
Fair enough. In terms of the fight itself, I mean, here's the other problem for Allen, right? You go in there and you just style on a guy who's unranked. It's not like you're necessarily showing to the world that you are ready to move up in the ranks. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. You get double your pay, potentially even a bonus. Who's to say? But what does it mean? Well, Brendan Allen was asked this question, and this was his answer.
Is there a chance that you leapfrog Nasruddin and fight Sean next because of your history with him?
I sure hope so. I mean, Sean's out here trying to sacrifice his boy, so that's pretty messed up. But yeah, man, you never know, man. You never know. The only thing that Nasruddin's got, obviously, is a good ace in his back pocket is that he's beat the guys below him that's coming up. So, but the more you let time pass, and those guys are staying active, you never know. But he did earn his spot. You never know what's going to happen with this division right now, as you know. Like, if Hamzat fights Sean again, then is Nasruddin going to want to wait out? Because if Sean goes out there and gets destroyed by Hamzat, are they going to have a third one? It's kind of a very, very weird spot. And I feel like Nasruddin is the type of guy that doesn't want to wait 2.5 years to fight. So I'd love to have that one back. But we got to get through Edmund first.
I got to tell you, Ben, he's not leapfrogging Imavov. I mean, in the event that Imavov gets injured and Brendan Allen is available and gets a nice win here, I wouldn't necessarily rule out a call up from the bullpen in that circumstance. But absent that, this win doesn't really propel you forward, not much.
Yeah, and that's why it's another, if you're talking about what did your manager say to you to convince you that this was a good idea, you could be turn around asking the same question of Brendan Allen, that if you're basically tied for number 4 in the rankings and they tell you fight this guy that potentially does nothing for you on a fight card that who knows how many people even watch it. It's been completely overshadowed by the White House thing. How much does it do for you? What is the risk versus reward? Are we doing this just to stay busy? Are we just going to the ballpark and getting paid? Is that all that this is about? Because yeah, it's a fair question to be like, where does something like this put you? If I'm Brendan Allen, for one thing, I'm getting a new manager, one who's not talking me into fighting his other client so he can get paid off of both of us. But another thing I'm trying to go out there, beat this guy, make a real statement with him, put him away, and then get on the mic and be like, hey, this is bullshit. I have earned better than this. Get me in there with these top-ranked guys. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep killing these guys who are way below me in the division, and it serves nobody. Like, get me a shot at Imavov, the guy with the Raven on his shoulder. Get me a shot, something with Sean Strickland. Like, call somebody out, make us feel some kind of way about you. And that's what's kind of missing from Brendan Allen. When I see him in this interview, this media day thing, I'm kind of reminded of that, where you hear, like, he just seems like a surfer dude who's here to have a good time. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, man, the future is unknowable. And you're like, you could do a little bit more for yourself, self-promotionally.
He's got a little Matt Horwich in him. Remember Matt Horwich?
Oh yeah, man. I don't know if anybody has a little there's no such thing as being a little Matt Horwich. Matt Horwich was, I remember going to Team Quest at those times when Matt Horwich was a staple at the gym there, and you could see it in the faces of other guys. I remember once watching him spar with somebody, I think it was Chris Wilson at Team Quest, and Matt Horwich kicked him in the face, and his toe went into Chris Wilson's eye, and Chris and I both did the same thing, where we immediately look down to see what the state of Matt Horwich's feet are. And of course you go, oh yeah, they're awful. It's a hygiene nightmare down there. His toe just went in your eye, and you could see the wave of emotions on Chris Wilson's face, where he was just like, am I going to get staph of the eyeball now? What is this? Then mad at the guy for kicking you in the face and sparring and putting his toe in your eye. And then finally acceptance, being like, it's Matt Horwich. He doesn't know any better. He can't be expected to take all these things into account, man. He rode the bus here to get here today, and the people on the bus probably assumed that he was living on the streets. They had no idea that he was a pro fighter. And so you just go, I can't even get mad at him, And there's only one Matt Horwich out there living in the multiverse.
Fair enough. Maybe it's I don't know, the Santa Monica version of such a thing, if there is. Down the card, you have I don't know if it's Freeze or Fares Ziam taking on Tom Nolan. This is my personal view, Ben. This is maybe, okay, the main event is more important. Co-main event has a degree of strangeness that might make you want to watch, something like that, right? But to me, just as a fight, this is the best fight on the card. Fares Ziam is sitting with DraftKings at -310, Tom Nolan at +250. I really respect the run that Ziam has been on. Both of these guys in their mid to late 20s. Two lanky strikers. Look at the size, by the way, on the right here of Ziam. This is insane. Absolutely nutcase how big he is, because there's Justin Gaethje obviously on the left there. There's Kamaru Usman, who, might be fighting up at 185. And then you got for Ziam and Nolan at 155. Shocking how big he is. You can recall from the Matt Frivola fight when he framed him off and then fed him that knee. He uses his frame really well. Both of these guys have dynamic striking. They use their range well. Do you share my enthusiasm for this particular contest on this card?
I didn't coming into this, but I think that you've convinced me. I think that your enthusiasm is infectious on this one. I am surprised at that photo, though. This is a weird thing that we sometimes do in MMA, right? Like how my CME co-host Chad Dundas always says that Alex Pereira has a magical ability to appear in a photograph with anybody and somehow appear slightly larger than them, no matter who it is. And it seems to happen when people are like, I want to see him next to Shaq just to find out, just to see. Put him next to him. Just see if he somehow manages to appear slightly bigger than him too, because some guys just have that. But that is kind of amazing when you look at where you're just like, all right, here you are standing next to a former welterweight champion, current lightweight interim champion, and everybody else would guess that you're in, the next higher weight class up from both. It's crazy.
He's ridiculous. Long Island. Do you share my enthusiasm for this card? And I guess my second, or I'm sorry for this card, for this particular fight. I'm sorry. And do you share my skepticism on Tom Nolan at plus 250? I think Ziam is the better of the two. Nolan has been impressive to me. He's not quite, I think, as far along as Ziam. I don't think he's that far behind either.
Yeah, both guys are coming off wins over Long Islanders, but Frost beat back-to-back Long Islanders, all right? So I got to naturally just side. I'm on his team now, He beat Nas, he beat Frivola. I'm there now. Tom Nolan coming off that Charlie Campbell win. I feel like Charlie Campbell not as high up as Nas or Frivola. So, again, Frost just beating way better competition. I am riding with him, Luke, and it is weird because Tom Nolan is Australian. You'd think naturally I'd go with him, but not that I haven't been impressed, like you said. I just feel like Faraz is way better than him. I'm riding with him.
Down this card, Ben, is Bryce Mitchell, just at a minus 142 against I think he's been on Contender Series, but the somewhat debuting at 8-0 Santiago Luna. Yeah, excuse me. He has. I stand corrected. He's got the 2 fight nights performances, but you would never remember them. Kwong Lee and then Angel Pacheco. Here he is now, like a gigantic step up in Bryce Mitchell. And, I understand Bryce Mitchell is probably not exactly at the high end of what we thought he was, but he had a decent performance in his last outing. This is at 135, right? So he's somewhat reinvented himself. We'll talk about it in the next segment. He has sounded, what do you want to say, surprisingly coherent, actually, and thoughtful on some other unrelated issues to this. I don't know, the odds are really close on this one, and I get why there can be some lingering doubt about Mitchell, but there's just a lot of belief in Luna here in a way that seems to me somewhat surprising.
Yeah, I can't say that I've seen enough of Luna yet to know what to expect. And with Bryce, you don't know what to expect in a different way. I mean, we know that he is sort of a specialist. He's limited in some areas, but he has, in the somewhat distant past, proven to be really good at the stuff that he does. There's also, isn't there always a chance that Bryce Mitchell is going to roll in, look terrible, and we'll find out it's because he got salmonella from drinking raw milk, 2 weeks before the fight? We just don't know. You don't really know what to expect of either of these guys, but for such wildly different reasons.
For me, Bryce Mitchell at his last fight, so his last MMA fight, which was Saeed Nurmagomedov, I think it started off a little poor, and he kind of rescued himself. The thing is his experience is way better. He's got more than double the amount of fights. He's got more than double the amount of fights against much better guys. I mean, this is a guy who beat Dan Ige in 2023. Are we saying he can't beat Santiago Luna in 2020? I mean, you know what I mean? It almost feels to me, this is not quite right. But it feels something akin to the co-main event where you've got a ranked guy. Again, Bryce, I'm not sure where he's ranked. I don't think he is ranked yet, against an unranked guy. It doesn't have that contour, like the wide disparity. But I just don't know what they're seeing in Luna where they're like, oh, this is a guy a horse you really got to ride. Long Island, what am I missing?
I got to put some respect on Santiago Luna. Luke, you're a big stats guy. Look at the strikes per minute, man. Luna landing 8.2 strikes per minute. Bryce Mitchell
against fucking who, bro?
Yeah,
Quang Bang Lee, baby, and Angel Pacheco, the elite fucking former UFC fighters. I think they're both now cut. But dude, 8 strikes per minute. He lands more takedowns too, 4.2 takedowns per 15 minutes. Bryce Mitchell does wrestle as well, but Bryce is landing 2 strikes per minute. If Luna can keep this standing, this is his.
So Luna is just an offense machine.
He is.
And I guess that's what they're kind of banking on.
Yeah, I took him as a dog. I'm just so I don't think anyone has to say they like Bryce Mitchell. I don't. So I'm like, fuck yeah, let's ride with Luna. Let's see what happens.
Elsewhere on the card, Ben, Matt Schnell taking on Alessandro Costa. There's wide odds on this one. Costa widely favored to win at minus 675. And then, this one they're just putting on there for fun. The crazy Polish gentleman, Iwo Baranewski, taking on Junior Tafa. I don't know much about how this one's going to go other than it's not going to go past a minute, right? Like, I feel like it's a pretty good bet.
Well, you hope it doesn't go past a minute, because if it does, then you're looking at nobody's going to be having a good time watching it. Let's get in here, quick fireworks, get out, move on to the next fight. That's kind of the best situation you can hope for there.
And by the way, Bryce Mitchell did a little show and tell at Media Day. Take a look at this.
Hey, thank y'all for having me today. I wanted to show y'all something. I explore abandoned mines and abandoned towns when I'm in Vegas just for fun, and I've got 3 nails right here.
What are you doing with your life?
Wait, did he keep talking after that? Did he say, because
does it matter?
It kind of does. It kind of does, because first of all, when he says, I explore abandoned towns and mines and stuff when I'm in Vegas, my first thought is, well, of course you do. Of course you do. That just makes sense. And then there's no way I was thinking the next thing was, I've got 3 nails. That's what you took back from, like, you went and you're like, I know what will really impress people is if I bring back some old rusted nails that Bryce Mitchell is as likely to get tetanus from as he is to, like, hold on as important keepsakes. And I'm just like, what were you thinking the reaction was going to be like when you showed people those nails? Because that's why I need to see the clip continue, because I'm just like, what was the mood in the room? Did he continue? Did he go on to explain why nails? Why he felt the need to bring these nails? You want some rusted nails, Bryce? I'll find you some rusted nails. That in itself doesn't seem like a great find. And also, I'm wondering what you think the nails do for you, and what you thought that it would, what response you thought it would get out of other people.
Bro, this is not too dissimilar from what my daughter does digging up in the backyard. You know what I mean? Oh, I found this nickel and this bottle cap. It's like, sweet, go get dressed for school or whatever the fuck, like, go shower. What, like, I don't know. I didn't know what else to say. It's just, he got knocked out by Josh Emmett. You know what I mean? And there's evidence.
You're saying maybe things haven't been quite the same since, and they weren't going great before that.
He seems quite friendly, and actually in our next segment, he actually has something thoughtful to say. So with that in mind, let's kind of move on there. Topic number 3, if we can. So Ben, as I mentioned, he has his co-main event podcast, and most of you probably already know this, but for folks who don't, he writes for Yahoo's Uncrowned. Chuck Mindenhall, who's on Mondays. We got all the Uncrowned guys here on this show, but in any event, he wrote an article about what I'm going to say is the unusual promotion of this UFC White House event. Now, this was largely based off of the kind of media tour that Dana White had done last week. But honestly, Ben, as time has since expired from then, and you can see the article itself, it says, as UFC White House nears, Dana White is suddenly everywhere making the case for Trump and himself. Since that time, the promotion has only looked more like that. Ben, I'll just tell you, I've done quite a bit of mainstream podcasts or news shows or whatever.
I've seen you.
You're out there. Say again?
I've seen you. You're out there.
Yeah, I'm out there. Well, here's what's interesting. In not one of those interviews that I've done has anyone asked me a single question about the fights. So they're definitely getting attention, but it's hard to know what that means. So why don't you tell the folks about what your article's central thesis was, and what you make of, since what you wrote it has only continued, and what that might mean for the whole event.
Yeah, I think that it's not that crazy to me now to think that 3 weeks, 4 weeks before the event, clearly this was part of a concerted strategy on the part of the UFC and TKO. Clearly, there's got to be some hard-working PR people out there being like, let's offer Dana White up to all these outlets and sell it this way, as like Dana White's going to tell you about the meteoric rise of the UFC and how it came to be the Trump administration's preferred sports brand and what it's doing on the White House lawn. And Dana White goes out there, does, he talks to David Remnick from the New Yorker. He talks to Steve Inskeep from NPR. He's in Rolling Stone. He's on the cover of Time magazine, all this kind of stuff. And I guess it shouldn't surprise us, knowing what we know about the UFC's brand first approach, that they want to sell the UFC before they want to sell any individual fighters. But as we get closer to this event, I keep expecting it to shift. Maybe it still will on fight week, but that feels at this point like maybe too late. Steve Inskeep brought it up when he talked to Dana White, where he was sort of saying, like, hey, you've got interesting stories on this fight card, right? Like, especially for America's birthday celebration, which the UFC still continues to claim it is, even though we're doing it on a Sunday night so we can have it on Trump's birthday. Steve Inskeep pushed him on this a little bit, and Dana White was like, it just happened to fall on Trump's birthday. And you're like, bro, come on. You're going to tell us, like, it's the White House lawn. It wasn't like you were trying to book T-Mobile Arena and you were like, this is the only date it's available, man. There's a Doja Cat concert here the night before, so we couldn't do it then. Like, it's the White House lawn. It was probably also available on Saturday night. You know, like, it's not like other events are booked for that. You obviously chose this as a birthday party for Trump on his 80th birthday, but you just can't say it. You refuse to say it, even though we all know it. It's the UFC's version of Trump's physical numbers every time, where it's just like, good news, the 80-year-old president has the physique of a 28-year-old NFL running back, and everybody just has to go, yeah, that's what we're seeing too. Sure. And he pushed him back on this, and he was saying, well, you're doing this interesting event to celebrate America on the White House lawn. You have an American guy in Justin Gaethje who, used to be a minor, very briefly before he decided that this sucks. I want to be a pro fighter instead. But then you have a guy from a Georgian refugee family who mostly grew up in Spain. Like, this is interesting. And then Dana White really had nothing to say about them. He was just sort of like, yeah, they're both really good, and they knock people out, and they produce great highlights. And it was just like very boilerplate. He didn't sound enthusiastic about them. There are good stories you could tell, especially about Ilya. That's the thing, is you look at who you have on this card. Ilya Topuria and Alex Pereira both have real star quality stuff that you could be pushing as their promoter. And the UFC is clearly choosing not to do it, either because they've learned, hey, the strategy is got to be the brand, fighters come and go, or because they just don't care enough about those guys, or because they see, hey, look, this event is weird and odd enough that it's going to get people's attention just for what it is, and it's wasted time to talk too much about the individual fighters because you're starting educating people from absolute zero. They've never heard the name Ilya Topuria before for most of them. The interesting thing to me is, and I wrote about this on my Substack, and it got a strong response, is that when I first wrote this article about the way the UFC is promoting it, and I was posting it on social media's various platforms, and there is an anger toward the UFC among, people who are either like casual sports fans or not even sports fans. There are a lot of people who didn't really have an opinion about the UFC or didn't have a strong one before now, who they see, oh, the UFC is part of this Trump administration thing. They're doing an event on the White House lawn. Once they see that structure, and I saw your pictures of, walking by and how far away you can see that structure from. They see that, and it becomes instantly a visual reminder, like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is kind of who we've become as a country. It's right next to an open construction site of this ballroom. They look at it, and it's hard for it not to feel like a visual metaphor for what we are, because it looks like some carnival shit. Like, it looks like a giant version of something you'd see at a state fair. And they're going, okay, that's what the UFC is. It's these weird gladiator fights for the pleasure of the emperor on his birthday. And there is a backlash already forming against the UFC because of this. I know Dana White's, his take on it would be, I don't give a shit, because that's his take on kind of everything these days. But it is surprising to me how many people are angry at the UFC, angry at the UFC fighters for participating in it, angry at me for writing at all about it, and kind of looking down their noses and being like, this redneck trash carnival ass shit. And I was surprised, because I was like, I came here to criticize the UFC for how they're going about this. You guys end up being like, this stuff is trash and it's garbage and it sucks and it's for idiots, and this just proves it. And I'm going, whoa, 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 whoa. The sport itself is awesome. But the way the UFC is going about it is making a whole bunch of people be like, this, you are very clearly allying yourself with the Trump administration. You're allowing your thing to be used as propaganda, because there's nothing that can just be neutral and when it comes to the Trump administration and the political climate in America right now. You're letting yourself be used by it. You're showing up excited to be used and to play this role. People are going to hate that. A lot of people are going to hate that. And if you're in the business of trying to promote your event to as many viewers as possible, that doesn't seem great, man. I know the UFC is going to be just like, we don't care, watch the fights, don't. Dana White, that's been his take forever. If I were Paramount and I were hoping I was going to make my Billy a year back in Paramount Plus signups, and the guy is out here being like, go to hell, don't care if you watched, who gives a shit. I'm going, no. That's not what I thought we were doing. We're trying to say, sign up and come watch this thing. And you're doing kind of the opposite, especially with a president who has like historic unfavorability ratings. There's going to be a lot of people who come away from this mad at you and decide that they hate you forever because of it.
Man, I have so many thoughts on this. I will keep them contained because there's not a place for all of them. I will say one thing that's been really, really interesting to me in talking to all these people who I would normally never talk to, is that I keep getting this question of like, is the UFC trying to say that they intend to take their product in a political direction? And I'm like, we're here because that process is already completed. This is the culmination of this, right? And so the only reason I'm bringing this up is not to argue about the merits or lack thereof of it, but rather that there's a large group of people who have not been paying, who are just not MMA fans at any capacity, who now have to encounter this on terms of understanding it vis-a-vis through the Trump administration lens. And what's interesting, Ben, is that this rule, right? It's like sort of like a hard and fast rule. If only MMA media is covering something, it may or may not be that big. If you get sports media involved, and that can mean different things, but let's just say the more sports media you get involved, the bigger a fight can be in terms of covering it. So you get sort of the center of the concentric circles, MMA, then sports media. But now you're getting political media coming in. And the reality is that does vastly open up the audience. Like, Ben, honestly, if they simulcast this thing on CBS, I think the ratings actually could be huge. But nevertheless, no one in that third group, which is ostensibly the largest group, is necessarily coming because they know Poatan is trying to get a third belt, or that Ilia Topuria and Poatan are the two most electric talents that the UFC have. They might be coming for curiosity. They might be coming for something else. They might be coming as a hate watch. Who's to say? But it's all being refracted through this political lens it may not be a barrier for some. It might be a point of attraction for others. But that is a completely unusual way to get introduced to a sport. I'm not sure if I've ever seen something like that in my 46 years. And so and all of that is to say, this final question, what do you think all of this means for viewership? And what do you think it means for how the country non-MMA fans might come to understand what's happened?
Yeah, that is interesting. I think a lot is going to depend viewership-wise on what we do with the broadcast, because I still haven't heard anything about, are we putting this whole thing on CBS? Are we putting only part of it? And if so, which part? Because we really need to drive some Paramount Plus subscribers. Because one thing that I think is going to be, at least for us, a strong comparison point is, how do your numbers compare to the MVP event on Netflix? I think you got to beat it. If you want to be able to come out of this feeling like this was a success, I think you need to beat it. Trump is out here saying this is going to be one of the most watched sports events ever. You're also going to be up against, maybe NBA NBA finals, NHL finals, and the World Cup. So there's going to be some other stuff happening sports-wise on the same night. But you are bringing in a lot of people who have probably formed an opinion one way or another about it before they ever see it. And those opinions are strong and they're charged by just what's happening in the country right now. There are not a lot of people who feel sort of like neutral and willing to be convinced right now in our country. It is not that kind of a climate. And when you come out and you say, we're the guys throwing this birthday party for Trump. Remember the concert thing? Milli Vanilli don't want to be involved, man. Milli Vanilli does not want to risk the power of their brand by associating it with the Trump administration. And the UFC is like, we can't wait. we're very excited to tie ourselves to this. Like, that tells you something. Like, you're right. It's not a process that is beginning or is taking a new step. It is just sort of the party to celebrate that process. That is a choice that they have made. And there, I think, are a lot of reasons. I have an article coming out soon about like just why this sort of thing happens and what it tells you and what the historical parallels are for it. But I think that you are going to have a whole lot of people who know this thing is happening, or maybe telling themselves they're not going to watch. The curiosity is going to get them, and especially if it's just on CBS and if it's easily available, they're going to go, all right, let's see. And I think that they are going to be stunned by some of the weirdness. There's no way this is not a weird sports event and a weird broadcast. We are used to it. We are kind of numb to, hey, when Trump shows up, man, the UFC broadcast, the UFC commentary, they are going to fawn all over him. That's what's expected of you as a Trump ally. You got to feed the man's ego. You got to worship him as if he is a god. And also the UFC broadcast will talk about him as if he is a universally beloved and entirely uncomplicated figure. There's be like, everybody's excited about the president, you know, and I think it's going to be strange for a whole lot of people who are not used to that, because you're telling me they're going to tone that down on Trump's birthday for an event on the White House? No way. He's probably going to get in the cage at some point. They might give him a belt. I think
they're going to give him a standing ovation when he walks out. Understand that, right? Like, everyone there is going to get to their feet.
It's entirely possible we induct him into the UFC Hall of Fame here. You know, like that kind of a stuff is what we're going to do here. They're going to turn the volume up on that so much that so many people are going to watch it, and they're going to be, I think, shocked, because they're going to go, this feels like North Korean state TV. This feels like just pure propaganda for this guy being, you know, projected through the lens of sports. And that's going to be the UFC in their minds. When someone brings up the UFC, somebody says, hey, you want to come over to my house and watch the UFC? You want to go to a bar, watch the UFC? They're going to be like, the Trump shit? That thing? That's what you want me to go watch? It'll work on the people who are, you know, the roughly 1/3 of people, according to most polls, where nothing can possibly convince them to move on from their hardcore Trump support. But the rest of the people, and it's not going great right now, even among young men, he's losing support. And so I think that you have a whole lot of people who, once you make that your brand, are going to remember you for that. And then maybe they don't give you a chance. And I think that kind of thing hurts the sport in general, because you tell people like MMA and they go, oh, this is that trashy stuff on the White House front lawn. And that's where I get mad. And I go, no, you listen to me, damn it. This sport is amazing if you actually give it a chance and just pay attention.
We were at the Playboy Mansion, okay? So put some respect on our name. How about that?
Yeah, and see, that is the kind of thing where, like, it almost feels like we're headed to a throwback era in that regard. Because you remember how it was back then, where it felt like you were always defending MMA to these people who said that it was just like barbarism, who said that it was just a bunch of like tattooed bar bouncers kicking each other in the nuts. And you're like, no, that's only sometimes. Other times it is a beautiful, amazing human experience. And I feel like they're kind of pushing us back toward that in a completely different way. It's like I've said before, it feels like I made a wish on a monkey's paw for MMA to be mainstream.
Yeah.
And now it's happening. And I'm going, not like this. Not like this is not what I meant.
I had the same thing. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a president who was interested in fighting? And now I'm like, right, I don't ever want a president to be interested in fighting ever again. Again, no. I'll just wrap on this. Like, here's an interesting local angle to all of this that, you know, the rest of the country is not really going to care about. I don't expect them to care about. But you have to remember, if you're local, like Trump has put his name on the Kennedy Center, and they've got a lot more cops out there policing the parks. Now, they have turned the water fountains on in the parks, although they're paying for that with park entrance fees, which are supposed to go to maintain the other parks, which is kind of a problem.
For instance, the ones we have here in Montana that are always running out of money, and you're taking our money and you're putting
that's exactly what they're doing. So like people, like I've seen people be like, oh, Trump turned the fountains on in DC. Isn't that nice? I'm like, don't get me wrong. It definitely has improved the parks, but like I would like to have a sounder strategy for what is all happening here more broadly. But anyway, I'm just trying to point out he took over the East Potomac Public Golf Course. Got only like the from what we've seen, a lot of the plans are to kind of jack the prices up and maybe make it less accessible. Got, you know, who's to say? I learned how to swim in that park through the Red Cross camps that they had in the 80s. My daughter had her second birthday party there. They might take all of that away. And then, of course, painting the reflecting pool. He wants to put up an arch, and like he's just kind of trying to force his signature on everything in a way that at least the local population really doesn't like. And then for him to erect this thing in the front, the back lawn, I should say, of the White House, I don't like. To your point, I'm so used to the absurdism of MMA that like that act alone does not bother me. I don't have a reaction to it, but I can tell you, in conjunction with all of those other things, they are seeing it as part of a continuation of him doing that. They're seeing it as a continuation of him putting his name on the Kennedy Center, taking over East Potomac, painting the bottom of the reflecting pool, like the whole 9 yards. They're seeing it as an extension of that. And this is kind of what I mean, like the way in which the UFC is introducing itself to a lot of people is expressly under very controversial political terms. And I just don't know what that means for viewership at long term, and I don't know what that means for the product long term. These are the central questions that we're going to find out in the next few months to a few years, I suppose. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big, bold statement in a lot of ways for the UFC to throw in this way. But I also, there's a part of me that goes, have you guys fully considered this? Have you considered the fallout? Have you considered the ways that this could go wrong? I mean, the UFC, one thing you always have to give the UFC credit for is like live event production. They do incredibly well. It's a well-oiled machine. They know what they're doing out there. They can take it to kind of any arena in the world, but this is going to be completely different. This outdoor thing, a completely different crowd. It could end up being a very different vibe. You're bringing in soldiers as long as they are not too fat to be on TV, according to your standards. You're going to have them in their dress uniforms out there in the June heat. I saw something saying standing room only, so you might have them just standing there through the thing while you have a bunch of VIPs sitting in chairs, and we're all looking in the background to see how many people on the Epstein list are back there. That's going to be a weird vibe, man, on TV. And then you're going to get through this entire, we've seen, you never can tell if there's going to be weird shit happening at a UFC event or at an MMA event. Weird shit can always happen in this event. You throw in all these other variables, the weird stuff we're probably going to do for Trump's birthday and all the other things. Like, there's no way there's not some bizarre stuff about this event. There's no way it just goes everything great according to plan. Some weird shit is going to happen. And what do you do with that going forward? Because if you're the UFC, whether you like it or not, you're going to be dragging the baggage from this thing around for a long time.
With that in mind, before we get to topic number 4, let's remind everyone, I like to go to the movies. The summer is often some of the very best time to go to the movies. And this summer, nothing is off limits. Scary Movie is back, diggity donks. And the Wayans brothers are bringing their R-rated comedy chaos with them. Marlon Wayans, Sean Wayans, Anna Faris, and Regina Hall are back in their iconic roles, and they're facing a whole new wave of horror. They're pushing boundaries, crossing lines. Everything and everyone is getting roasted. If you thought the trailer was wild, just wait. Everyone could use a laugh these days. So grab your friends and experience the comedy that's even better with a crowd. Scary Movie, only in theaters June 5th. June 5th, donks. That's today as you're watching this. Get out and go see Scary Movie. All right. With that in mind, Ben, let's go to topic number 4. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but I think it's worth kind of a mention. There were some reports this week from Sports Business Journal and some other places as well that the PFL has been in talks with some broadcasters. They're currently on ESPN, and that deal comes to an end at the end of this year. But they were reportedly talking with places like Fox Sports and Netflix. Of course, as I mentioned, ESPN was kind of also included in all of this, although it does appear that the relations between ESPN and PFL have soured, given some of the statements from Jonathan Martin, who is now running the PFL. So I just have to say out loud, Ben, I am skeptical of these reports for a couple of reasons. So let me just pitch it to you first. When you hear that the PFL is in talks with some of these entities, do you buy that? And if so, where do you think that what's a good fit for them where they could end up?
I don't really buy the Netflix one so much, just because everything we've seen and heard from Netflix about their approach toward live sports is that they don't want to hit singles. They only are interested in stuff that could potentially be a home run. They're willing to spend big for it, but they need it to be one of these, the whole world stops and watches what we're doing kind of moments. They don't seem like they're interested in we need more or less weekly sports content that people can, if they know it's there, they can watch it, and the rest of the people are going to ignore it. I mean, maybe they think, hey, if it's budget like conscious, we could get into that kind of a business, but there's been no indication that they're really interested in that kind of a thing. So it would signal a strategy shift for them. I think right now, like the PFL is just sort of stuck because people have sort of made up their minds about it inside the sport. Anytime you have to go and try to explain yourself outside the sport by saying, hey, you know, the UFC, we're like that, but less so, then that doesn't work. Like, or there's a real ceiling on that for what you can get out of people with that. Like, you know, basically you saw, you know, Amazon Prime get interested in one, but it was very much as a, yeah, sure, let's throw this thing on there and see what it does. Not like this is a major brand for us that we're going to stake a whole lot on. And I think the PFL has a real problem in that regard. Like the PFL has felt like it's been on life support for a little while. And I thought that we were going to find out a lot by what ESPN's attitude would be toward it once UFC left ESPN and PFL was sort of the only MMA ball game in town for ESPN. Like, would they go hard on that? Would they try to promote it more in order to get it to at least partially take the place of what they're losing with the UFC? And to hear the PFL kind of come out and be like, I'll be honest with you, they're not doing a damn thing for us. To not only be feeling that way, but to be feeling that way so much and to think that it's such a lost cause that you're willing to go out there like on Ariel Helwani's show and say that tells me right there, you got problems. And it's hard for me to see somebody like Netflix being like, yeah, that seems like something we really want to scoop up.
I feel like this was just complete astroturfing, to be honest with you. Because to your point, the acrimony or the distance, however you'd like to describe it, between Jonathan Martin and ESPN is real and visible, and there's really no secret about it. Certainly not anymore. So there's that. And then you have the other two entrants, Fox Sports and Netflix. Fox Sports, has been out of the MMA business since 2018, basically, and they've not tried to get back in it. I mean, you could say, well, what were the other options? All right, fair enough, but there were some reports I saw from some other reporters after this initial article came out, and they were like, yeah, we talked to our Fox Sports sources, and they claimed that they're actually not that interested at all. And then that brings you to the Netflix component. Now, I would think that PFL might have some great utility for MVP in staffing some of their cards if PFL would be amenable to such an arrangement. We're going to co-promote on some capacity. We'll give you some of our PFL guys to be on these big Netflix cards. If that was some kind of an arrangement that they could reach, that seems to me like a viable path, but that's not the same as having a Netflix deal. I mean, I get accused, not unfairly, Ben, of being fatalist around some of these non-UFC discussions. And it's like, please don't misunderstand me. Like, I started watching MMA in a world where the sun neither rose nor set on the UFC as the dominant brand. I mean, yes, and back in the 90s, of course. But, by the time the early 2000s rolled around, Pride was clearly in control at this point. And I know what it's like to have something of a array of other promotions, some fly by night, some not so much, but I would love nothing more than to go back to that world. But the economic conditions that made that world possible and the place that we're in now with the strength of the dominant firm, this is not possible. It's not possible without some kind of law or some other kind of profound contract change. And so, by no means do I wish the PFL poorly, but it's just a little hard for me to kind of fictionalize my coverage for them under the belief that this is a thing that can sustain itself. It can go a lot longer because I've just, the rule, Ben, MMA promotions, when they die, it's very, 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 very slowly and then all at once.
Yeah.
So I think that there's probably some runway ahead. And also, I like what Jonathan Martin is doing with the PFL. But I feel like this report was, I don't know, leaked or suggested or whatever as a way to pretend that there's actually more interest than there is to get other folks to come to the negotiating table, because I just find the reporting very, very difficult to take at face value.
Yeah, I remember when I worked for the IFL, and which itself did not last long as a MMA upstart promotion. And one of our web guys put on the website a Xbox logo, like in this kind of sponsor area, and I was like, "Oh, really? Do we have? Is this a sponsor for us now?" And he was like, "No," and I thought it looked good. Other people will see that and they'll be like, "Oh man, these guys are sponsored by Xbox. Must be a big deal. Like, let's see if we can get in and be a sponsor with them too." And I was like, "I don't think you can do that, man. I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna work. I don't know if we're allowed to just do that and make that decision." And the PFL at this point seems like it's always a troubling sign for an MMA promotion when they just start trying a bunch of different stuff, branding wise, and just trying to change something format wise, something to kind of just be like, look, we're a brand new thing now. And the PFL, especially when I heard the PFL teasing ideas about like, oh, maybe we'll change the name. And it's like, you already did change the name. This was World Series of Fighting. It was WSOF. And it's Professional Fighters League. It's the PFL. You changed the format. It used to be this all tournaments kind of thing where we were all competing for a giant check, literally and figuratively, for $1 million. Then you made it so that the check was smaller. You made it so that you won less money. All these kind of things, you abandon that format. Now we're doing this format. That is not a sign that things are going well. That's not a sign of like a healthy fight promotion where, hey, we're on the right path. What we're doing is working and we just need to keep doing it. That's you saying like, we're in desperation mode. We're kind of floundering around and trying whatever. And one thing I think that we've seen is that if you're going to be in the combat sports space, you can't just be doing what the UFC is doing with people we know less about and with a brand that is less powerful. You got to be trying to explore another kind of niche that's related to this. Like BKFC has done a pretty good job of that, where it's just like, we're going to get MMA fans roped into this thing, but it's a different thing. You see now even RAF having some success doing that, where it's just like, this appeals to the same people, some of them anyway. It has some of the same elements, but it's a completely different thing. And the PFL has tried a bunch of different ways to sort of find something that's going to stand out. The smart cage, for instance, like, things like that. And it just, none of them have worked. And you haven't stayed with any of them very long before you decided, no, forget that. We're going to go on and do something else. That is worrisome to me. And especially now that you have some other players getting into the space, that just says that it's going to be harder for you.
I don't have much to add to that. So with that in mind, let's go to topic number 5, which is to me something that is really, really interesting. So Scott Coker has been doing the media rounds. I know Uncrowned spoke to him. Did you speak to him, Ben?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So you can certainly weigh in with what you said to him. I can't keep up with all. He did a bunch of media appearances, but he spoke to Ariel Helwani kind of in studio, and I really paid attention to that. And he basically laid out the details of his new MMA operation. We knew some of them before. We now know them a bit more. So what he basically said was they are going to have a tournament, but it's just one weight class at a time, not all of them all at once. Quote, we're not going to be a tournament-only organization. We're going to put on great super fights. There's only going to be one tournament in 2027. They're talking about 12 events in 2027. They're talking about 100 fighters. And I made a list of who he signed in terms of like adding people to the organization. He signed Kevin Kay, who when I worked at Spike TV was the head of Spike TV. I like Kevin a lot. Tom Fox, Chief Operating Officer. He used to work at NBA, Nike, Wasserman, Arsenal, tons of places. Rich Chow, who was his Bellator matchmaker, and before that, the Strikeforce matchmaker. And of course, Rich came from Elite XC. Paulo Bacatti, I don't know who he is, but he's works on the European side. Lawrence Stewart, who is the media rights and business development guy. He comes from Fox, Sony, Universal, you name it. And then Chris de Blasio, who was the longtime PR guy for Showtime. I've worked with Chris. He's very, very talented. So in saying kind of all of these things that they're doing and who they're adding to this, what gives you the most amount of confidence about what they're doing? What gives you the most amount of pause?
Well, honestly, some of those names you just mentioned are what would give me some confidence, because these are people who have experience in this space and have experience sort of being the number 2 brand and what it takes to carve out a space for yourself, because we've seen them do it. I mean, I know people will criticize Scott Coker's track records. They'll be like, hey, he ran 2 different failed MMA organizations, but it's like he took Strikeforce from a just regional show in the Bay Area and turned it into enough of a competitor that the UFC said, let's buy this thing now that we can to stop it from getting any bigger. And that was not an insignificant thing to be able to accomplish at the time. And I remember going and covering those Strikeforce events. They built themselves up to a point where you couldn't ignore Strikeforce. When they were doing that heavyweight Grand Prix, some of the names they had in that, some of the big moments they created, I remember going and covering those Strikeforce events, and you're sitting there and you're being like, this is big time MMA. You cannot deny that. There was enough interest and buzz over those things. They were on, people forget that they were on CBS long before any of this stuff, long before the UFC signed any deal with them. Didn't always go great. They had a brawl over there in Nashville that soured CBS executives on them a little bit. But if that same thing happened now in our current TV and sports climate, it'd be a very different response, I think. So like and then he came in Bellator, but he came in as sort of a hired gun of, hey, this thing is sort of going down in flames. Let's get somebody who has experience to come in here and see if he can fix it. And he did at least stop the bleeding enough with Bellator. So he has enough experience in this. And like you said, Rich Chow is such an experienced guy as a matchmaker and sort of fighter relations side of things. He's been doing it forever. So, Chris de Blasio, when you get media guys, like communications guys like that, who have experience in this, have worked in this side of communications for a long time, that makes a real difference. So those names and the fact that you got some funding to start up with, that's the most encouraging part of it. And the idea that, hey, maybe the UFC seems complacent these days. There's an opportunity to challenge them, or at least find your own niche within the world now. The thing that gives me the most pause are, where are the fighters going to come from? Where are the bodies going to come from? How do you get interesting people or build up interesting people, especially right now? As long as the PFL still exists, they're going to gobble up some of the available free agents. The UFC is just not letting people get to free agency. They're not even letting people get started because they got the Contender Series that serves as such a easy pipeline to get fighters early in their careers, get them locked into these contracts. They fight cheap, that you can just get a ton of them, get your hooks and guys early on. And then you got also MVP with Netflix, and they got some deep pockets to go get some of these big name free agents who might still be out there. So where do you get fighters from to do an event once a month, let alone twice a month? Where do you get these names from that people actually care about? Are they even available? That's the part that is a concern to me. They insist that they're not concerned about that they will figure it out. But it's, you're talking about, Scott Coker told me, hey, we're going to launch in January. We're sitting here in June. You don't have a single name sign that we've heard. So that's a lot to try to get accomplished in a short amount of time. I do like what he said so far. And he said the same thing to me about, we're going to do tournaments, but we're not going to do the old Bellator format or the old PFL format of where it's just tournaments in every division at all times and everything is part of a tournament, because that gets confusing for people and it loses some of its appeal. That you want to be able to pick and choose. We're doing a tournament in this weight class at this time. And that, I think, is smart, because it allows you to look and be like, who's available? Are there a string of, 3 or 4 welterweights that we could get that people have heard of? We could sign, and then we add 3 or 4 more you haven't heard of, and now we have a tournament. Tournaments work on people. And tournaments are a way, especially if you tell us there's a big grand prize or something, we're going to change somebody's life at the end of this. That is a way to just artificially, and I don't mean artificially in a negative way, but just to create meaning and to create stakes around something. And I think it's smart to do them one at a time. It's easier for us to focus on. Tournaments are also fraught because, remember who won the Strikeforce heavyweight Grand Prix? It was Daniel Cormier, who wasn't even in it to start with. That'll happen in MMA. People get hurt. People can't continue, all that kind of stuff. Those kind of things, I think, are I think it's a good idea in a way. They said, hey, we're going to do some super fight stuff. We're going to do tournament stuff. I just don't know if there are enough free agents to have that kind of activity. At least for now, you have to kind of plan it in some people's heads. Hey, is your contract coming up? Maybe think about getting out of that, because we're doing something over here.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that for me personally is I I would say the thing that I'm most excited about or gives me the most confidence about this is what you also said, which is the people. I won't belabor the point, but Rich Chow, I have a high degree of confidence in. Kevin Kay, same thing. Chris de Blasio, of course. There's lots of people over there that are quite competent at their job, and I think the staffing. I don't see anything on the staffing that looks like a red flag to me. I'll put it that way. I think that it all looks pretty good. The thing that I would challenge a little bit, Ben, is I had to cover a bunch of those Showtime shows when I was at Showtime. And dude, I used to joke with Brian Campbell. I was like, the sound of Bellator in this era is like, if someone had to ask me, like, what's the sound of Bellator? And I would say it's the main event getting booed out of the facility. Dude, I cannot tell you how many nights I watched Bellator and I watched their main event get absolutely booed by the audience, and it didn't matter what side of the country it was on. This was so ubiquitous. This is not so true for the last few months, right before Bellator completely came to a halt. They had like a lot of their tournament stuff happening, some of the Japan stuff happening at that time, which is, I think, the more exciting end of what they did. I'm not here to say it's all a total loss, but there's been like this, in my opinion, there's been like a revisionist history around Bellator. Dude, Bellator sucked on Showtime. I can say that freely now. It was bad. It was I got in trouble for saying as much because I just couldn't believe how bad it was. And I think for people, I mean, there's just been a lot of people been like, oh, he's just going to pick up where he left off. Well, Strikeforce was a hit, and there was definitely some stuff with Bellator that went right. Don't misunderstand me. But there's a lot that just didn't. And I know it because I was watching all of that shit because I had to, and it was painful, bro. It was straight up hard to watch. And I just think that if we're going to factor in a lot of the positives of the calculation, such as you've articulated them, and I've echoed some of the same, I think we need to have an honest conversation about the end of Bellator. It was a bad product. It was not good. It was not dynamic. And that should go on the record too.
Well, yeah, but I also think that some of that you have to lay on the doorstep of the TV people who are going like, well, what do we do to make this thing pay off now that we've invested something in this? And because it was, once you moved Bellator behind the Showtime paywall, that was it for a lot. They were just like, man, I barely wanted to watch this stuff when it was incredibly available to me. Now you want me to go through an extra step to watch it?
But they weren't killing it. But they weren't killing it on Paramount before. And again, going from Paramount to CBS Sports Network, which you'll recall, they put them there for a little bit, and then later put them on Showtime. This didn't help. They were doing.
Well, no, I mean, it was on Spike
Paramount
first, right? Like it was Spike that then became Paramount, and it was like that was a big problem too, because it was like, hey, Spike had carved out a space for itself as like dude-centric programming. It had the UFC. You got people used to watching MMA on that channel. And Bellator came over after the UFC left, and then they went Paramount. It's movies and like prestige TV shows, like a sort of off-brand HBO that's more easily available on cable kind of thing, like Yellowstone. That's what Paramount became.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like I had friends who worked for it when it was Spike TV, and then the next thing they know, their job is essentially editing Yellowstone promos to try to get more shots of Kevin Costner on a horse. Like that was a big identity shift for them, like to go through. And so it was like Bellator had a hard time finding a home. And I also think when you talk to Scott Coker, because I did a story about Strikeforce and about that first event Strikeforce did. It had the first sanctioned event in California under the California State Athletic Commission and set North American attendance records with the Frank Shamrock Cesar Gracie that didn't get beat until the UFC went to Toronto years later. And talking to them about how Strikeforce started and how it grew. And then they both said, Rich Chow and Scott Coker both said, when we came into Bellator, it was never the same vibe because it was always like, this is somebody else's show that's doing badly, and you're brought in to try to fix it. And it wasn't the same thing as us starting with our own thing and building it the way we wanted. And I think that that's probably what they've got to be thinking now is we get to start our own thing again from scratch and make it what we want instead of trying to fix somebody else's product. Scott Coker told me that when Kevin K brought him in there and he looked at Bellator and he said, I'm not sure I can help you with this thing is already, it's got too many problems. And I think that there is going to be a little bit of a difference. I also think though, the same problems I mentioned with the PFL, you got to find a way to not have to tell people we are like the UFC, but less so, because people, one UFC is enough for most people, especially when they're running shows almost every weekend. You look at the summer schedule that we've got. I think the UFC takes 2 weekends off for the rest of the summer. So it's not like there's a ton of space in the calendar where people are just being like, man, I wish there was some MMA to watch this weekend. No, there's plenty to watch. They're not providing you with that much room. You got to come up with some kind of unique sales proposition that's going to get them in the door.
I'm less convinced by the argument, personally speaking. I'm less I do think it's real when they say, we're walking into a situation rather than creating it from scratch, and that this will confer meaningful differences. I'm not opposed to that argument as such. I think it's overstated, though. I think it's overstated. I had conversations with people, high level people at Bellator, and when it all collapsed, I will tell you, not a single person identified that as a problem. And they're saying it now. They're saying it now, and so I'm open to the idea, but like I will tell you, when I was doing postmortems on Bellator's death, nobody brought that up. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. They've certainly got some money, not a lot, but they got enough, and they've got time, or at least, well, the clock's ticking, I suppose, but they've got some time, and they've got some leadership that's proven their ability in this space. We'll see how it goes. That is our top 5 here for the day. That means we're going to play a game, Ben, called Rank That Card.
Rank that card! It sucks.
All right, guys. Everybody, good game. Rank that card. LT, we'll start with you.
All right.
Who's going to have more UFC fights after this card on Saturday? Matt Schnell, Junior Taffa, or Chelsea Chandler?
Wow.
Just a who's who of elite fighters.
It won't be Schnell, I don't think, because he already retired once, didn't he? Right?
Yeah, but he's come back, I think, twice since then. And
okay, but I mean, once you start that process, there's fits and starts, but it tends to be closer to the end than anything else. I'll go Taffa. Those Taffa boys, I think that they've just got get out of jail free cards because, they're just going to live or die by the sword. You kind of all know that. They know that. UFC kind of likes that in certain places, especially, they're going to have relevancy in Australia for a long time. So I'll go Taffa 1, Chelsea 2, Schnell 3.
Wow. Ben, you changing that order at all? You're going the same order?
No, I was also going to say Junior Taffa just because I think there's a decent chance that the UFC occasionally gets confused about which Taffa they're talking about. They just want a Taffa. I think you can, and when you're in one of these divisions where it's not like there's a ton of guys to choose from, you got to go to Australia. You got to have a Taffa brother on the card, ideally 2 in case something happens to one of them. You could hang on for a while using like that as your leverage. And also, yeah, Matt Schnell seems like, I've honestly a little bit surprised to find out he's still in the UFC. Chelsea Chandler, though, I feel like you might have a limited runway yourself.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on that. Ben, which undefeated fighter is most likely to lose on Saturday? Santiago Luna, Jesla Chavez, we'll say, or Iwo Baranowski?
I'm going to say Luna, just because, I mean, your strikes per minute argument, while compelling, is a little like telling me, though, about somebody's high school rushing stats. And it's like,
you ran a 5.4.
Yeah, you go out there, you run over some kid who he's only on the team because his dad made him. He didn't want to disappoint his dad. That doesn't necessarily tell me that you're going to go to Alabama and be running through the SEC next year. So I think that there's a chance that Luna might be in a little over a set.
All right. LT, changing that at all?
Most likely to lose. I'll go 1. Chavez. I'm not sure how the Brazilians say it, but I'll go that as 1. I'll go Luna as the middle because I just feel like they're bringing in my man Iwo, or however you say it properly. He's there to do a job. Yeah. Let's just be honest about that. He's a hitman, and the Taffa brothers, they'll knuckle up with you. They're good for that, but I feel like Iwo is just a little bit of a too much of a. He's got that. Who's that light heheavyweight who's just a fucking berserker?
I mean.
The dude from Moldova.
Oh, Iwan Kutalaba?
Yeah, he's got a little bit of that Kutalaba in him, So I'll go him last, and so we go Chavez, Luna, Baranevsky, or however you say his name.
All right. LT, which fight will BC study for work purposes? Souza Carnelosi, Chavez Dubin, or Cachoeira Chandler?
Oh wow, that's an interesting one. Well, we one time asked on this show, Ben, because we're completely sexist pigs. We asked Brian Campbell, you got to kind of rate the talent on the women's side of the equation. What's going to be better, Brazil or Russia? And this fucking idiot picked Russia, if you can imagine such a thing. And I'm like, dude, how do you? Oh yeah. How do you pick against South America at all, much less against Russia? But okay, he does. So you're saying, all right, Souza Carnelosi, 2 Brazilians, he's out. Chavez versus Dubin. Now you've got Venezuelan and you've got Brazilian, so that's probably also a no. And then Cachoeira Chandler. At least Chandler, you've got an American in there. So I'll go Chandler, Cachoeira. I'll go because Chavez. I'll go in reverse order. Dubin is from Venezuela, so there's not Brazilian. So then we go 2 Brazilians last. I don't know if any of them, are going to appreciate this coverage, but here we go.
Hopefully none of them see it. Ben, which underdog has the best chance of winning on Saturday? Edgar Chairez, Gabriel Bonfim, or Santiago Luna?
Gabriel Bonfim. I leaned his way talking about this fight earlier. I still think that there's a good chance that he's got what it takes to beat this version of Belal Muhammad. I'm entirely ready to be wrong. Once you actually pointed to the trend of the old dogs hanging on in Apex main events, that's what made me nervous. The same way somebody pointed out to me the recent trend of big UFC events is the underdog winning title fights, and I was like, are you telling me just in chance? I maybe I'm too much of a believer in trends, but I still think it's Bonfim.
All right, LT?
I'll go Bonfim 1. The second one is harder to pick. Chairez is taking on what's his face, Bruno Silva. And Silva, he's got losses to Charles Johnson, Josh Van Manel Kopp, but like all those dudes are good, So yeah, you know what? I'll go Bonfim, Luna, Chairez in that order.
Right, nice. Finally, some Luna appreciation there from you guys. LT, which fighter from Tough is most likely to fight for a belt one day? Bruno Silva, Matt Schnell, or Bryce Mitchell?
Not one of them.
Yeah, but which one's most likely?
Bryce Mitchell, 1, Bruno Silva, 2, Matt Schnell, 3.
I think that's fair. Ben, you changing that at all?
Bryce Mitchell has proven that you can't be too crazy for the UFC, and people at least know his name. Man, it'd be a dystopian world, but it is probably more possible than guys who are already not doing spectacular, and also people don't really know them that much. So yeah, true. I'll stick with that.
I could see a world where Bruno Silva gets like 1 or 2 good wins, and they're like Brandon Moreno, Bruno Silva in Mexico headlining a card or something, and then like from there he gets that and whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, the best chance there is basically the UFC being like, we don't really care about this division that much anyway. So sure, fine, you can have a chance.
Sure, get your rematch. Ben, which fight are you most likely to go fishing with? Brendan Allen, John Yanni, or Bryce Mitchell?
Pre-meth Hitler.
You know what? Well, Brendan Allen's whole vibe didn't seem like it was that great for self-promotion purposes. He did seem like a pretty chill guy to go fishing with. I don't know if we'd necessarily have a ton to talk about, but I think that we could kick back. We could enjoy the scenery. We could have ourselves a nice time. So I'll say Brendan Allen.
All right. LT, I think
I'm actually going to agree with that because, Bryce Mitchell probably has a good read on like good places to fish. But dude, he's going to he's going to go hunting for nails or shooting his balls, or he's probably doesn't even use a fishing rod, just uses his hand and then pulls the fucking string on
one
that
of
thing.
Those with the
like he's like, I don't wear seatbelts because I want to be able to tuck and roll. It's like, do you really want to go fishing with that guy? Probably not. So I'm going to go Brendan Allen 1. I guess I'll put Bryce Mitchell 2 in that sense, but
wow, no respect for John Yanni here. Texas boy. I don't know. I feel like Texas
boys
to
go
are
fishing.
Like
no, it's going to be tough to beat Arkansas in that regard.
All right. LT, who's the most entertaining fighter on the card? Bruno Silva, Gabriel Bonfim, or Iwo Baranowski?
Now, see, this is going to get to an interesting definition of most entertaining. You know, bang for his buck. The answer is obviously old Ewo, right? Because he doesn't give you. He's not there for a long time, but he's there for a good time. He's there for a quickie, you know, and the amount of time he gives you and what he gives you in that time basically cannot be beat. But there's just not a whole lot to it. So I'm going to say Bonfim is the most entertaining, with Ewo as second. But I can understand if Ben or others have a different calculation here.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like entertainment value, if you weren't thinking about what the fights mean, what the stakes of any of these fights are, just turn it on. Is it Rock'em Sock'em Robots? Then yeah, like I would say Ewo. But I also might say like the thing that Bruno Silva has going for him is how often do you see a bad flyweight fight? You know, you see some fun should happen over there. So like I might honestly, I might put Bonfim last because there is a chance on this one that if Belal Muhammad gets to do his stuff against Bonfim, it might not be that fun to watch.
I could see that. Ben, whose fighter's stock will drop the most with a loss on Saturday? Belal Muhammad, Brendan Allen, or Marcus McGee?
Oof. Man, I gotta say it's Brendan Allen, just because if you lose to Shabazian at this point, especially when, hey, you were sitting there in the top 5, you took on this guy after a big win, and then you lost, man, you drop right out of there, and it's kind of looks like a disaster for you. But close behind is Belal Muhammad. I mean, I think the only thing is that we at least recognize, hey, if you're in a main event here against a guy who is bringing a win streak in, he doesn't suck. He's there for a reason. Whereas Shabazian against Allen, we're not sure what that reason might be that he's in there against you. So I think Brendan Allen's kind of got to win.
True. LT?
Can't disagree. I mean, Bilal's stock would suffer, right? You'd then be like, oh, that's 3 losses in a row. You're about to be 38. It's kind of a wrap for you. That would be bad. But again, Brendan Allen is fighting an unranked guy, and he's ranked inside the top 4. What the fuck are we doing?
The difference there, I guess, is like if Brendan Allen loses, it's not like he's now unranked. He probably drops to like 10 or something. Whereas
that's pretty fucking bad, dude.
No, I'm not saying it's not bad, but I'm saying Belal 2 fights ago was a fucking champion, and he could be
but Brendan's
unranked
also
after
only
this.
30. Brendan's 30. He's got time to recover such that it can be.
All right, that's fair. LT, which nickname would you choose for Ben to adopt? Ben Thug Nasty, folks? Ben the Golden Boy, folks? Or Ben Remember the Name, folks?
It's got to be Thug Nasty. You know, you just listen. We're both dads with daughters. If you can't get a nickname that sounds absolutely anything unlike your actual life, then what the fuck is the point of a nickname in your 40s? Got to be Thug Nasty. Now the second one is more interesting. I'd probably go Remember the Name, just because it's a really fun way to just use it in this way. But Thug Nasty for sure.
Ben, which nickname are you choosing for yourself out of these 3?
Well, when I go and I get a coffee and they go, what's a good name to put on the side of the cup? I do say Thug Nasty. So just that one fits already. I feel like I embody that in my personal life. So yeah, I mean, you don't look at me and be like, that's a golden boy right now, a 46-year-old golden boy.
Well, I do feel like at Uncrowned, like on Ariel's show especially, they do treat you as the golden boy. They're like, Ben was here, Ben's great, look at how handsome he is, Ben's the best, you know. So you are the golden boy.
You do, though. The one thing I've cautioned fighters against is if you put any sort of nod to youthfulness in your name, it's not going to age well. You know, Uriah Faber was out there as like a 40-year-old California kid, and it was like, bro, I don't know how much longer you can keep doing this.
That's true. Even young Jeezy dropped the young, you know. Ben, which nickname would you choose for LT to adopt? Luke Big Train Thomas, Luke the Monkey King Thomas, or Luke Danger Thomas?
And I mean, Big Train has got that. It just fits, doesn't it? He's a big guy. You don't want to be on the tracks when he's coming through. Big Train is awesome. You know what I love about Big Train as a nickname too is that the people who know you well, they could just call you Train. You know, like they could be like you're at the gym and it's like, yo, Train, can you spot me? You know, like that's the kind of like you want a nickname where there are levels of like familiarity and intimacy with it. Like I played hockey with a guy, our goalie, who was named Bread Truck. Took years before I found out that his real name was Eric. But Bread Truck, and
Hell
then
yeah.
it could be a thing where it's just like you could tell who knew him really well because it'd be like, "Hey, Truck, you got any tape in your bag?"
Ooh, yeah.
BT, you want to go get some beers after the game? And you're just like, "Oh man, like that is awesome." Although the Monkey King, I could also see as a close second, just because it's just like it feels almost insulting to call somebody the Monkey King, because it's like you're like, what are you saying about me? But then it's like, no, but you're the king of them. You are their leader. You are the royal class of the monkeys.
I feel like Danger's always a good one, like Austin Danger Powers. LT, which nickname are you choosing out of the three?
It's Big Train, but only in the way that Brian Campbell would use it, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to make that joke when Ben was saying people who know you really well call you Train. I was going to say, no, people who call you really well call you
Ben,
Osborne at that point.
Yeah, Ben, the joke was, and I was horrified by it at the time, and I declined, but this is a true story. One time I was in the Marine Corps, and a dude woke me up. One of the guys in my platoon woke me up. He's like, "Oh, yeah, we're all running a train on someone else down the barracks. Do you want to join?" And I'm like, get the fuck out of my room. What are you fucking doing? And but dude, it was as nonchalant as like, "Oh, we bought a watermelon. We're carving up slices. Do you want one?" Like,
I appreciate the politeness of that though, because he was like, "Man, if Luke hears about this tomorrow, he might feel left out. he might feel sad that we didn't invite him. Let's at least find out." Like, he woke you up to be like, you know what? He'd want me to wake him up for this.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't want to sleep through this. So
Gotta
I
make it a
appreciate
communal affair.
the thoughtfulness of that guy.
Yeah, that's what I really appreciate about it. He was thinking about others, a lot of others.
Also, when you look back on that period in your life where you were part of a train at the barracks.
No,
like,
I was not part of one.
I'm not talking about the person the train was ran on. And you look back and you'd be like, that was maybe not my finest hour. I do recall overhearing in the background where they were like, "We should go wake up Luke." And you were like, we're recruiting guys? We're getting guys out of bed to come do this?
Someone was there being like, "We got to get the rest of the platoon in on this." But
we need more guys.
Insane. That's I'll skip the rest of that. All right, do we have any more of these, Long Island?
No, that's it for Rank That Card. But we got to go over. Well, first we got fan submissions.
All right,
you've got mail.
Viewers. All right, this is where we tell the audience to do artwork of us, and then we laugh at it, basically. Right?
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there, LT. I played the intro right over you, but I'm here for a reason. I want to first give out the award for the best meme of the month in May. So got some honorable mentions real quick. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Declan Luke. That was the guy who gave us that photo association game where it was just like random Google images and we had to guess who it was. That was fun. Not going to win meme of the month, but either way, I just want to show my appreciation for that. Another honorable mention to Jamie, who had that AI version of the MK after show when the cameras kept rolling or whatever. That was a funny one. But here are our top three. So in third place, we got Mike for his Yasmin Horigi or Uregi, whatever the fuck it is, meme. That was a pretty funny one. In second place, we got Paul for his MK intro. Here it is.
Luke Thomas, Delta 8, liberal former Marine, 6 foot flex, Puma salted drama queen, slick Chuck, Midden Hall, hating Dana White, trick balls, Bonanza, rating Angela White, got a bong with a long, look Island, watch along, minus a lonely girlfriend from the weekend gone, but I other the degenerate gambling MMA, packing in my bowl, it's Morning Kombat, yeah, showtime, making moves in DC.
That's a banger. That's a banger, but the fans are going to be disappointed if we give it to an AI person because they've been disappointed. Although a lot of creativity goes into making that. You can't just be like, AI, make me a Morning Kombat intro. You got to put some prompts in there.
It convinced me that Chuck should start wearing an eye patch.
Yes.
when he inevitably has to run from gambling debts and start his life over in a small Caribbean town, he should show up as the mysterious stranger with an eye patch.
All right. Well, in first place with the best meme of the month for May, we got Kuja with his Luke Thomas bingo card. I mean, this was Hilarious. A ton of fun to play. I also challenge any donk out there to play along on any episode and email us if Luke ever hits the full bingo card, because I'd love to then go back and watch the episode and confirm it. And maybe we'll send you a free prize if anyone can figure that out. But that's it for May. Now we got new fan subs for today.
All right, very good. And well, of course, the winner every month gets a free signed poster. So you can always send those morningkombat@gmail.com. Got just a few of these today. So let's go through them. Rundum Cheeks, who is, I think, a former Marine, sent 2 of these memes. Let's see. The books Luke Thomas says he reads, which is, Aristotle and Plato. The books I actually read, they're about pornography and more pornography. This is not. Oh, yeah. This is not an unfair accusation, although I also read the other books too, so not bad. And then the second one is what? Chuck Mindenhall, Luke Thomas. Angela White and Sarah J aren't even my type, bro. Oh, the urinal pornography intersection of humor. That's what this show is about. I'm sorry that you're here, Ben, but thank you for playing along just the same.
Are you saying that those are you guys are having discussions about, are those porn stars? I thought for a second we were like, are these UFC undercard fighters who I don't know and I should
For
know?
context, Ben, Angela White is like a running joke on this show, but every time someone's like, "Oh, Luke loves Angela White," he's like, "She's not even my type, guys. I'm way more into," and we're like, "Luke, we don't need to hear about your porn preference."
I brought her up once as a joke, and then everyone kind of took that as like, "Oh, that's exactly the kind of thing I go for," and it's just definitely not, but it's a funny thing to talk about.
That's
all
on
right.
you.
Exactly. All right, from Eric, he says, so the God of War parody was made before BC left Morning Kombat, but I sent it to the wrong email address. I figured it was better late than never. It features the original MK trio, LT as Kratos, BC as Atreus, and then Luke as the undead, disembodied head of Mimir, the smartest man alive. I'm not sure I understand all these references. I photo bashed the original image and then added a few Easter eggs I thought you guys might like. Side note, no one can replace BC, but I want to give a shout out to Long Island Luke's increased participation in the show and to Chuck Mindenhall as the new regular co-host. He's a great addition to the MK crew. I don't know. I guess the thing circling of is an octagon. There's a DC flag on me. I cannot see this very well because of my new monitor. But pretty good. Not bad. I definitely like. All right. It says there's 3 of these memes. Oh, here we go. Saying they were KO'd. No. Saying they were sent to the land of wind and ghosts. I love that saying, Ben. It's a great saying, is it not?
Yeah. I've been using that one for years. I mean, that's my friend Dan Brooks, New York Times writer, is also very fond of that one. And it's a versatile saying. It's a great way to elevate what is essentially, one guy hitting another guy so hard he goes to sleep and making it sound like art somehow.
There you go. And then last but not least, saying you might disagree, saying your mileage may vary. I say your mileage may vary a lot, Ben, and they hammer me for it. So,
I saw it is on the bingo card.
Yeah. Yeah. Along with gets sanctimonious. So
also on the bingo card, I have to say, was mentioning being in the Marines. We heard about running a train in the Marines. So
yeah, I mean, dude, it's a winner. Like, he thought this one through. It's a winner. It's a winner. All right. Mike. We're almost done here. Mike has a bunch of memes for us. Let's see. Days without being quite candid with you. LT 0. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. Politics. Yes, my political coverage has increased. MMA is hanging on, and boxing has just completely fallen by the wayside. I mean, we basically, MK was like, we're not. Even if Brian Campbell had stayed here, we would just be doing less boxing. Is kind of the way I would put that. But this is also a funny meme. What else we got? Average Luke Thomas live chat pick. These are done on purpose, but that's also true. So I post a picture and then put it on my YouTube channel to solicit questions. And I always do like a dad selfie on purpose.
Nice.
So this is kind of what they're referencing. Let's see what else. Long Island Luke when he has a good bet. Who is this lady? Is this some like financial lady or like a religious?
The Long
lady?
Island medium.
She's a
medium.
medium.
She's a psychic.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys don't. She had a show on like A&E. I want to say. I don't know. She's
Dude,
famous.
I think
on
Long Island is real trashy.
I mean, yeah, but she wouldn't be able to tell you that.
All right. And last but not least, I think Unranked women's bantamweight fight at 4 a.m. Long Island Luke, average main card minute stream. Hell yeah, bro. That is definitely you. What do you have to say for yourself?
I think that's an actual screenshot from one of my streams. That's it.
All right. And last but not least, we got some from Josh who says MK Ghostbusters themed, had to hold some back, but very funny. Ben, listen, you joined the dumbest show in the world, and we have some lore on this show, which is at one time I really had to I had to go real bad number 2, and the only place to go was a Joseph A. Banks, and they didn't even have one, so they let me use their employee bathroom. And
you had to have a conversation with them about this?
I told them I would buy things if they let me.
Did you?
I did ultimately. Although I felt like, wouldn't it be hilarious if I just walked out? But I didn't have the heart after what happened. So there's that. All right, we got more of these. What else? Is that Danny Segura?
Yeah, it's Danny. Like, I don't know, shooting.
Oh, sucking in. No, he's sucking in their bathing suits.
Oh,
because he's a creep. Okay, fair enough. That mustache gives the game away. What else we got? Is that you, Long Island?
It's obviously supposed to be me, but I would argue, LT, you're the only one who's going to get this reference. It looks like Brandon, the cameraman from Malcolm, more than it looks like
Brandon.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't quite get the reference here, but okay. Then the next one. The Keymasters. What does it say under the Keymasters? I can't read it.
It says VIP rooms, private dances, full liquor. I don't even know who that is.
So the Keymaster, Ben, was from Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah.
This is supposed to be Oscar Willis?
Oh, is that who it is? Oscar. Oh, shit. Okay.
I don't get this one, I'll be honest. And then last but not least, it's Brian Campbell as Slimer. And you'll note here, Ben, we're in the parking lot of an Arby's, and these are Whippet canisters that he's finished using.
Classy.
That's what we do around here, my friend. That's what we do around here. That is the show. Thank you all so much for watching. Ben, we do have the fights this weekend. We've got the White House stuff next weekend. Are you coming to DC? What's your plan?
No, I'm not. We have Chuck Mindenhall on the ground. I have advised him to write a story in which he puts on various disguises and tries to sneak onto the grounds. And then we get a story about how long it takes him to get taken into the basement of the White House and waterboarded. But he seemed less than enthusiastic about that idea.
All right, very good. But if you want more of your coverage, or how can folks get what you're doing?
You know, I'm over there on Crowned. I'll have a whole bunch of stuff leading up to the White House week. You can find me at the Co-Main Event podcast and our Patreon, patreon.com/co-main event, and my Substack, The Fighting Life, which has gotten renewed attention now that people are angry at the UFC.
Yeah, very good. Long Island, are you ignoring your girlfriend this weekend?
Yes, but not for what you think. I'm going to a bachelor party this weekend, which is why we're pre-recording this episode. I will be in the Poconos for the weekend, but do have a new prop quiz dropping in 30 minutes from when this airs. Oscar Willis taking on Mike Heck, and it's a fun one, so tune into that.
Should be fun. Ben, we really appreciate you being here, man. I'm glad we could make time for this. Would love to have you back. I know your schedule is kind of complicated and all that other stuff, but thank you so much for being here, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
There he is. All right. For Ben Fowlkes, for Long Island, for everyone on the show, I'm Luke Thomas. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll talk to you on Monday. And until then, may all of your gains be loyal.